I do feel so little political movement on that side of the aisle. Like the only thing I think has made it to me is Bernie and AOC are doing rallies together. And as exciting as that is, right? Like, oh, someone capitalizing that and like being able to pull out thousands of people at rallies for something that isn't even a campaign. I don't think Bernie is going to run in 2028. He's too, to be honest with you, I think he's too old. He's just too old, and he needs to be, it just needs to be somebody else. And I don't feel like someone else, like AOC is going to a lot of those with him, but I don't think any person is stepping up to that position right now. Like there's this huge void that is just begging for someone to step up and be the guy on the other side.
I was looking at the poly market.
It's nobody.
I was looking at the poly market of like the prediction odds, the betting odds on who will be the nominee in 28 for Democrats. And number one on this is still Kamala Harris. There's no way on earth they should run Kamala Harris again. It's crazy. I mean, I guess I'm just worried that this ultimate opportunity is going to be completely own gold. But
I'm curious if you guys feel this way. I think part of why they've struggled with this, as somebody who's not a political expert, right?
Me neither.
But is that the campaign has been so focused on Trump bad. Here's all the bad things about Trump. And I feel like I have not seen a Democratic leader that inspires me with here's a vision for the future that is better, rather than at least 50% of the dialogue being here's why Trump is bad. And I don't think that works anymore. Like it didn't work in 2016. It did work with Joe Biden, and then it didn't work this last one. And I feel like the stuff I've seen from Democrats, which is admittedly not deeply diving, but I think it's actually illustrative of somebody of like, what is reaching me? And it's like Bernie Sanders, AOC doing rallies. Okay, great. But it's largely about Trump being a piece of shit. And like, sure, I don't like so much of what he's doing, but like there needs to be more. There needs to be a vision for what the Democrats are offering specifically, not just we aren't Trump. I just don't feel like that works anymore. I'm just not hearing a coherent message. I think that's maybe why Abundance, the book, resonated with me, because I was like, this feels like more of a platform, but I haven't heard a Democratic leader come out and say, this is concretely what we want to do. And it's just been, hey, we have to fight against Trump. And I don't know that that resonates with people anymore.
I will say,
I would be very curious your thoughts. Yeah.
Because you said it didn't work the first time. It did work in 2020. And it didn't work the last time. I agree with that 100%. I think it works after people experience it.
Yes. Yeah. Which is, we'll talk about with Canada.
Work this time.
No, with Canada, Canada got to experience Trump and he flipped the entire fucking election, right? And so it's like, there's no way he would win again, for instance, because everybody would hate him. But that's even more so, right? Like he's not running again. Asterisk.
Yeah.
So like what I think Democrats should be doing is really focusing on how are we offering this amazing future in 2028 and beyond. And instead it's still just Donald Trump bad. And I'm sure there is more nuance, but that's all I'm hearing. And it's like, dude, we gotta have more, from anybody. Trump is just, it's shocking and sad how thoroughly he dominates the conversation with everything.
I genuinely agree with you. For this previous election, I would say right now, pointing out the bad things is not necessarily a bad political strategy.
No,
just because
of course not.
People are feeling it and it's not working. So
it's like the third round of this.
But
right?
I agree. It is exhausting to live in this country.
Like, there has to be more on top of that. It's not like, obviously, like the tariff. Anyway, there's so many things to complain about what he's doing, and those should be addressed and like fight back and all that. But like it didn't feel like there was any life in the Democratic Party until Trump started doing this crazy shit, and now they're rallying against it. That shouldn't be the only impetus for rallying a movement together, is that there's some guy doing crazy shit, rather than you have genuine leadership that is inspiring people, irrespective of what Donald Trump is doing.
And I'm hopeful, man. I mean, in America, we didn't get FDR until we had Hoover. And I do think that like,
Trump is probably single-handedly going to swing things way to the left.
He might do something crazy.
It's wild.
I'm not out of that line of thought.
I do want to reply to a couple things you said. So
get in the mix.
Because one of my criticisms of Abundance, the book, is the lack of connection for what it's talking about to actionable, not policy steps, but actionable ways you could support these types of things in the political sphere.
Yes,
like the
I agree with
message
that.
is really hard to the idea behind the book of like, let's analyze issues and enhance state capacity as best as possible to deal with them. Not a very great campaign slogan. And I think that allows people also who are scrutinizing it to interpret it in whatever way they see negatively too.
Rather than a really coalesced movement towards something specific.
Like the most common left-leaning criticism of the message of the book that I see is like, it wants to outsource everything to private corporations, and that's how we should like make and build things, which is, I don't think what the book says at all. But I think that ambiguity and my criticism of the book is like, okay, I read this thing with a bunch of ideas and examples of how the government has empowered institutions and people in the past to build amazing stuff, and we'd like to do that in the future. How do you turn that into like a cohesive political message? I think one thing that oh yeah.
Can I say something? Because I think that is how it generally works, right? He's not a politician. So he's writing an idea.
Sure.
It's like Keynes. We're reading the Keynes book.
I agree.
He writes
I mean,
things,
it's not
and then a
necessarily
politician takes that and makes it their like. The politician's job is to take those ideas and make them palatable and understandable and sloganable for regular people. And
it's
so
not his job to do
I think
all
the
of that
book-
part
Maybe
of
we're
the
just
work.
desperate for it.
Nobody is necessarily stepping up to like grab that messaging. At least
it is Pete Buttigieg. He's
he
been
did a
doing
good
a bunch.
job
I
on
listened
the
to
Flagrant podcast, right? He was on the, was it?
I saw like clips of that. He's been doing a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
And he's actually voicing things really, really well. And I don't know if he's trying to be president again or whatnot, but
he definitely is.
He's the one politician I've heard of where it's like he has a more coherent vision for what's going on and incorporates some of those ideas and then also pushes back on some. And that's like the one thing where it feels like this is a vision for the future, not just Trump is bad, you know?
I agree with that. And I actually think your example of the Bernie rallies, for instance, I think the inflection point for something like that is definitely Trump bad, hate Trump. Like that's the reason that people are riled up and going to these things initially. And that's the energy that you have to take advantage of.
Right. And then divert that into something.
His message is super consistent and strong as it's always been. I think there's also criticisms of like, okay, how do you deploy the things that Bernie is advocating for? I actually think the issue more so is maybe the branding and image and like how long he's been in that position in politics now. Like the fact that you feel that way about Bernie's rally is part of the issue to me, not necessarily to fault you, but that when you've been the same guy in the same position for so long that's lost along the way, and I won't delve into the details of like why I think he lost along the way as well, but I think either way, he did lose up until this point. Yeah. And you have to contend with the fact that like this guy in his 80s, no matter how consistent and strong the message is of anti-corporation, like working class, like these are the types of like policies and things we should fight for in America and like what we should build. I think it needs to be behind a new face. And that's what I would be looking for is like the guy, there needs to be a new guy. Maybe Pete Buttigieg is trying to be that guy right now from the media he's trying to do, right?
Watch
Somebody to step up and synthesize a lot of the messaging that we're looking for as people like in our position, like who's going to fill this void to be the next guy.
It's just shocking. Like we watch this clip. It's just shocking the standard we're asking for though, because what Buttigieg is going to do here is talk normally like a normal person explaining an idea. And if you listen to any of these Trump clips we're watching, where he's talking about the big, beautiful flags or whatever, he is not going in depth on anything. There's not one issue I'm listening to him talk about where he personally, maybe JD Vance sometimes, maybe Chamath sometimes, maybe there's somebody, maybe Scott Bessent sometimes will say something that sounds to me somewhat reasonable and explainable. But he is never doing that, not once.
I think the reason that's the case also is I do think from what we've seen, I think if I was to lose my charitability and I would say Trump seems to be making a bunch of flippant decisions. You just described an anecdote where a paper was removed from his desk about a geopolitical issue and then he forgot about it because of that. It's like when that guy is at the helm, the other people who are able to explain things around him just take whatever actions that are output and then do whatever they can to explain them away.
Yes.
Even if they're articulate.
And they're conflicting. I mean, he has people in his cabinet like Bessent and Navarro and all these people who have different, they're answering different, Howard Lutnick, they're giving different answers
Different
on
answers,
what
yeah.
these
Yeah, there's
trade
not
policies are for.
consistency. Yeah.
And whoever he meets with last is the one he's parroting. So I'm past the point of charitability on it. And while I do agree, I feel a little bad that we're ripping into the difficulties Buttigieg is having, or Bernie's having, because it feels like the standard is so much higher. Well, I agree that they should all. Yeah. Anyway, that's
Yeah,
that's
I mean,
where
it's
I'm at.
it's demagoguery versus like a really coherent, boring plan. And, and it's like, how do you mix those together? For specifically, if you pull up the iPad really quickly with the Bernie Sanders rally. So I was watching like 5 or 6 minutes of this yesterday. I didn't watch the whole thing, but so he has a video to our establishment friends in the Democratic Party where he's specifically talking about actionable things to Democrats about how people are going to fight back and what's going to happen and all this stuff. And this is the type of thing that I think is great. Like he's communicating clearly about what should go on, but it takes several minutes to get to the point where he's not just talking about Trump. And I think that's the concern for me is like, I don't know that starting your messaging with that is going to rally people anymore, because that has been the dialogue for years, literally 12 years.
Yeah.
It's been nonstop Trump for 12 years. And
so you want to just like break through to the meat and potatoes. You would just want to get to like, okay, we all agreed that this is bad, or we're at a time where we all
know
agree
this is bad. Here's the specific steps we want to do, which he gets to. But again, it's like, I just wish, and this is probably naive, and I just want to like, I'm just like solutions type of person. And I know that's not what inspires people. But it does make me wonder of like, at the very least, something needs to change from what happened over the past 4 years, because if the Democrats want to win at all, like I just don't. Yeah.
I agree, except that I think, assuming we have normal elections, I do think based on this polling, they can run a lot of different ideas and people and still win. I think this is going to be poor. And so, what it means is a good opportunity for someone with a real plan for change to step up, because they could landslide. I mean, they could get a real mandate to make real change.
I think in this vein of discussion right now, it actually segues easily into the Canadian election, because that version or that guy, I think that we're talking about right now, I think just won. Is the head of the Liberal Party. And
we're talking about Carn Dog?
Carn
Dog.
Bro. I did have one quick question.
Okay.
I wanted to ask Doug, could you pull up the all-in clip one more time? The video you pulled up?
Yeah. Oh, and while that's happening, I do want to point out, like, if what I'd be curious about, if you feel like you are hearing a lot of like coherent messaging from the Democratic Party that is really a clear, like, this is what our plan is. I would be interested to hear that. I feel like I'm not seeing that anywhere of somebody who tries to stay like relatively abreast of things. And so maybe it's just like not reaching me, but it's like what you said. I feel like it's Bernie and AOC and maybe a bit of Pete Buttigieg. And that's like the primary messaging that's coming around. And it's mostly about Trump. And that's been.
It'd be nice to hear what people think is actually breaking through, if anything. Right.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to hear is if, over half of the voting population in this country voted for Trump. If you are a voter that voted for Trump, I would love to hear your thoughts on, first of all, why, and then second of all, if it's followed up with what you imagined.
Yeah.
Because I want to hear more from that side of I want to hear more from voters and what their expectations were, and if they're happy with this, or if they can steel man some of the things that I'm maybe denigrating. Because I don't know. I can't see it.
Yeah. Quickly, David.